The first step to our Monotype watercolor prints, we have to first sand the plexiglass plate. This will help create a textured painting surface to help sink the paint in, especially since it's a water-based paint. You would normally see little water droplets on the panel if it were to be smooth, but since we want it to be textured, it will help sink in the paint. Next, we will be attaching our portrait picture to our plexiglass panel. This will help us create a guide as we paint along. It will help us with creating the right proportions for our piece. Over here we have a couple of painting materials to help us color our monotype. I have freshly squeezed watercolor paint along with a Crayola watercolor palette. I also have a variety of watercolor markers in case you have a hard time controlling the watercolor. This can be a great idea to use for outlines. I also went ahead and added some Q-tips to help with our subtractive part of our painting process. Now I will begin painting. Usually when I begin painting, I like starting off with creating different hues of the skin tones and backgrounds, but since I want to start with the outlines of the face first, I am going to create different skin tones for the portrait. For my base skin tone, I am using a little bit of crimson red and applying a generous amount of ochre yellow to help balance it out, since red can be a little bit more dominant than yellow. Now I am creating my next transitional colors. I am using a little bit more crimson red this time to help with the transition into the shadows of his face. As you can see with the difference of my shadow that I'm creating, instead of just crimson red and ochre yellow, I will be adding a little bit of ultramarine blue to help create that cool effect within his face. Here is what we have going on so far for our skin tone. The thing about watercolor monotypes is that we have to paint in parts. So first off, I will be painting the outlines of his facial features, since I would like for it to dry when we eventually start with the main course of painting its face. For the face, no rhyme intended. So yes, I will begin with the outlines of his face first. As you can see, the scratches on the plexiglass is holding the watercolor paint pretty well, which is what we exactly wanted. The nice thing about painting on this plexiglass panel is that we can clean up any messes that we create within our painting process. It's really easy. You just grab a clean brush and just pick it up as you go, instead of affecting it as an overall watercolor painting. As we move on to our background, we want to make sure we knock this down before we get too detailed within our foreground of the portrait. I will be using some lemon yellow to show some fun and happiness of the portrait. As you can see, I'm avoiding going within the area that will be holding a lot of detail, which is his shirt and his facial area and hair. Just create an outline around it to help keep it clean. As I let my background dry, I am going to move on to his shirt. I will be creating different tones and shadows and colors for his different details of his plaid shirt. Usually when you watercolor paint, you start off with your lighter colors and transition it to your darker colors when putting on the shadows. But because we are making monotypes and we have a opportunity to subtract those highlights, I am going ahead and starting off with my darker colors. Just continue adding lots of layers and redoing your outlines if needed. Don't be afraid of removing your picture from the plexiglass. We can always align it after. Just make sure to add as much paint as possible. It's okay to be saturated with your paint. We are wanting to make sure that the paint will eventually transfer onto our damp sheet of paper. What different complementary colors do you see within your art piece? Now I'm just going back and forth seeing what I have missed when I had the image under my plexiglass. Just using the different Q-tips to capture the different highlights and using my paintbrush to darken the different shadows throughout his hair and his face. If computers and cameras hadn't existed yet, what are different ways that we can use printmaking for? As we come to a stop to our painting, we are now ready for the printing part of our monotype portraits. As you can see, I am now taking out the pre-submerged paper that I had in the sink. I left it in there for about 20 plus minutes while I was painting. So now I'm just gonna go and place it onto a flat surface, onto a towel, removing any excess water to avoid having pooling within my paper. This will help avoiding getting a muddy look when printing my image of the monotype. Our next step during our printing process is placing our plexiglass paint side up. I made sure to put a newsprint under it so we can avoid making a mess. And I just place my damp sheet of paper, watercolor paper, and try to position it in the middle of my plexiglass. And as I position it, I'm going to grab another newsprint and place it on top of my damp sheet of paper. With the Barron that I currently have in my hands, I'm going to add pressure onto the damp sheet of paper, creating a print with the plexiglass. So I'm going to start from the middle and just push out to the edges of the plexiglass. Here are different examples that I have used with the monotype process. I used watercolor paper for most of these prints, and the wrinkly one on the left, I used mixed media paper. Now I will be making a ghost print. A ghost print is the idea of using the leftover paint on your monotype or any other printmaking method, and you can do additional changes. I'm just going with a Q-tip, eliminating little areas that might have gotten excess paint, and I'm just going to be going in back into my background, trying to just make little changes that I would like to make. Now I will be going in with some of the watercolor markers. I'm just going in a little bit with the black, just giving it an outline on my portrait, giving it a cartoon effect. And I'm just going in with a little bit of the brown, defining some of his facial features, not trying to overpower it with any darker colors. I just want to complement the different colors we already had previously. And I'm just going to go in with some of the green, giving it more of a wallpaper effect, just adding little stars everywhere just to make my print more interesting. And now I will be doing my ghost print with mixed media paper that I had previously submerged in the sink. And I'm just going to repeat the process that I did previously. That concludes my monotype watercolor portrait lesson. Hope you all enjoyed and hope you have a wonderful Christmas break. Thank you for watching.